Here, let's call this meeting of the December 9th, 2024 Housing Action Committee to order. The first order of business is to say good morning. Hope everyone is doing well. As I've become fond of saying, our measure of success within this group will be people walking in front doors of housing they can afford on Hilton Head Island, to also assist the workforce and the whole community and the economy. We need to adopt the agenda, first item of business.
So moved.
Good morning. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda, or are there any changes suggested?
Motion to adopt the agenda as written.
Second, Stuart Bell.
Second.
Sandy West. Those in favor of adopting the agenda as written?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, approval of minutes of the November meeting. I think every one of us was here for that. Are there any recommended changes or revisions?
Motion to move minutes as written.
Aaron, second.
Second.
Sandy Gillis. Favor? Aye. Those in favor, nay? Are approved as written. Unfinished business, we have 4 items. Program updates from Quincy. Sharonica Gavin will give an update on the home safety and repair program. I'll talk a little bit about our work groups, and then we'll get to the displacement mitigation support plan for any further discussion and a motion. Recommend approval on that. We'll have a couple comment sections, one after Quincy's program updates, and then also during the consideration of the home displacement plan. And then also later on, there's a public comment section for folks that would like to talk on items that were not on the agenda from the public. 3 minutes each for the public comments. Quincy, program updates, please.
Again, good morning, everyone. So I wanted to provide a few high-level updates, and then I wanted to kind of recap the year in regards to some accomplishments that we've had. In regards to updates, so we're planning for the second phase of the Muddy Creek Community Cleanup Event, as well as the Jonesville Community Cleanup Event. We're looking at dates in January. So we're still doing our due diligence on our end, but those dates and flyers will be going out shortly. So work is ongoing with Habitat. We are doing our due diligence right now to refine our conceptual plans for the site, as well as building designs. And North Point, I've had several meetings with One Street Residential to discuss some of the programs in regards to the North Point project. So as we close out the year, I wanted to share a preview of our 2024 accomplishments. We're hoping to have a newsletter go out by the end of the year that kind of outlines all the updates in regards to housing. So here's a few. Collaborations with Habitat and CCDC. As you know, Habitat continues its collaboration with the town following its MOU approval by Town Council on February 26. Habitat was awarded $500,000 in funding for the acquisition of property on the island for single and multifamily workforce housing units. As you know, Habitat has recently purchased property on Spanish Wells, on the corner of Spanish Wells and Oakview Road, for workforce housing. CCDC was also rewarded $600,000 in regards to developing and acquiring single and multifamily workforce housing units here on the island. As you know, our Housing Action Committee was expanded to include 3 new members. Both Dennis, Katie, and Janet are our new members, so they've been a great contribution to the Housing Action Committee. So also, the comprehensive plan was amended to include the housing impact analysis. As you know, the town of Hilton Head kind of spearheaded that effort in regards to the state. The housing impact analysis allowed for accommodation tax monies to be used for workforce housing development. So that's certainly a major accomplishment. The housing fund commitment, the town allocated nearly $4 million to the housing fund in FY '25 budget, demonstrating a strong financial commitment to housing initiatives. Of course, as I mentioned before in previous meetings, we had our community engagement events. We had 2 in September 5th in Jonesville, September 12th in Muddy Creek. It was a great opportunity for us to provide outreach to the community. We were able to learn more. Community members were able to hear from town staff in regards to different programs and developments. And we also most recently had our community cleanup event on November 16th in the Muddy Creek neighborhood. We had nearly 60 volunteers between staff and island residents. We collected about 2.5 tons of bulk items and trash in the neighborhood. And as I mentioned before, we're expecting to go back in January. In regards to the QAP, the qualified allocation plan, we did provide comments to allow for the town of Hilton Head to be more competitive when it comes to low-income housing tax credits. The Muddy Creek Neighborhood Stabilization Plan, we've had several community engagement events in regards to crafting that plan. The plan will be a community-led effort, and those efforts are ongoing. We're hoping to present that plan to you all in Q1 of next year. The North Point Workforce Housing Project Development Agreement was fully executed on July 25th, which is a major step forward in regards to the public-private partnerships between the town and One Street Residential to build the North Point project. So obviously, we're really excited about that. If adopted, if recommended today to Town Council, the Displacement Mitigation Support Plan would be the first of its kind on the island. Setting a new precedent for addressing displacement in the community and outlining strategies to mitigate the impact of displacement events. And just a few others, well, actually, that's the end of that list, but looking forward into 2025, ongoing community cleanup events, as I mentioned to you before, additional cleanup events are being planned for both Muddy Creek and Jonesville. Ongoing collaboration with Habitat for Humanity in regards to the property off of the corner of Spanish Wells and Oakview Road. Ongoing collaboration with One Street Residential in regards to the North Point development. Of course, if recommended today, displacement mitigation plan continuing through the public review process, workshops and community engagement work in regards to Muddy Creek and other programs in regards to housing. The housing metrics dashboard, we're hoping for this dashboard to go live sometime next year. It will have data points at the fingertips of residents on the island to learn more about workforce housing. The Beaufort Housing Authority is expecting to release an RFQ for a developer by the end of this year in regards to the Sandalwood Terrace property. So that's something that we're very excited about. Obviously, we're planning to drop the Bryant Road RFQ Q1 of next year, following the Muddy Creek Neighborhood Stabilization Plan. This will be a project for home ownership within the Muddy Creek neighborhood that we're also very excited about. And the Workforce Housing Communications Plan is also something that we're looking to develop and hopefully move forward early part of next year. So that concludes my program updates and also a recap of the accomplishments of this year. Thank you.
That seems very helpful. Any comments, questions from Housing Action Committee members? I have a couple. One is the 500,000 for Habitat, the 600,000 for CCDC. Those funds are totally actually dispersed in them at this point, right?
I could speak on the funds to Habitat. Those funds were dispersed to Habitat to assist in purchasing the property off of Oakview Road.
Okay. And CCDC, was that transferred earlier in the year, or I don't know if that's fully in their hands yet or not?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. And the housing impact statement, as I recall, was intended to further the availability of ATAX funds. That was a check the box part of that effort that needed to go, I guess, to Columbia. Do we know where that is at this point, or what the next steps are on the ATAX availability?
I believe that's in discussion with Town Council, but I would say the necessary steps to get to that point was the adoption of the housing impact analysis, which makes available those funds for workforce housing development.
Others? Questions, concerns? Thanks, Quincy. Appreciate that. Public comment. Anyone from the public that would like to comment at this point? Campbell.
Good morning. Ken Campbell, resident of Sea Pines and housing advocate in general, and specifically I'm on the board of the CCDC. I'm not here for any of that but housing this morning. I had a conversation last week with longtime friends of ours who don't reside on the island, but their son's involved with a company that is currently trying to accomplish some workforce housing on the island. And as I've checked and I look back through, and I know you're the facilitator, coordinator for housing on the island, but as I look back through some of your minutes and agendas, I didn't see this on there. So if I've missed that, I just want to let you know that I am a supporter. I think everything needs to be reviewed, go through process and so on, so you'll evaluate it as you see fit. But this particular project, and being on the board of CCDC, and this is not a CCDC endorsement, but I'm familiar with a lot of the housing issues on the island, and I'm particularly familiar with I'll say the lower end workforce housing problems, very limited opportunities, and which obviously causes all sorts of other issues. This project, and I'm not being an advocate for it, but I know I just didn't see it on your agenda. This is a project that would convert the Hotel California, I was gonna say California, no. Hotel Carolina, would convert Hotel Carolina, the Days Inn, from short-term, very short-term rental, which most of it is currently used for, to long-term workforce housing for the low end of housing. And again, I don't know the details of the project, other than the questions I did ask and found out were that there are, I think, 119 units there. These would remain 119 or thereabouts, obviously subject to review and zoning and everything else, but that it would be something they would not have an AMI restriction on. Now, one of the problems we have with CCDC is meeting the 50% requirement for a certain percentage of our rentals. Very difficult because there's not much opportunity on the island. So to be able to serve a good number of people in that category is wonderful. They would not be placing a limit on that. In my opinion, it would be self-limiting. Someone that can afford a one-bedroom with a living room and an 800 or 1,000 or 1,200 square foot unit is not going to move into a studio. So anyway, I want to make sure that if I missed it, I hope that you become aware and become supporters, goes through all the proper review, but I think it's a very worthwhile project, and happy to be able to mention it to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken, could you share with us the address at the Hotel Carolina?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's right in back of Pirate Gulf.
Okay.
So it's adjacent to Shelter Cove, and so very convenient. I mean, again, looking at it from a overall perspective, a great location, a lot of jobs close by, there's public transportation that's there and available. So location seems to make sense. It's a conversion of very short term to long term, and my understanding is appropriate restrictions will either be put on it, they'll volunteer to put them on, or will be put on, I assume, as far as occupancy and as far as having to be long term.
Question.
Sure.
Can you share with us where the developer is in this process? Because to my knowledge, we've not been made aware of this potential project.
I can't get into specifics because I don't know them, so I'm not really presenting a project here. But my understanding when I mentioned this committee was there was no awareness of this committee. That's why I went back and looked at minutes. Well, not minutes, but I really looked at agenda more than minutes.
Quincy, do you have any knowledge of this?
Yeah, so I believe this project is going through the pre-application process right now. So there's really not a lot that can be shared publicly at this time. But yeah, I'm aware of what Mr. Campbell was talking about.
Are there other projects in pre-application? I mean, pre-application isn't private, is it? I mean, it's not,
Typically a public process, but, you know, I could get more information in regards to this particular process, this particular project and share with the committee.
because I would think that we need to know, I mean, since it's not private, it is public, things that are in the pipeline for, and I realize that not all of these applications come to fruition, but I think it would be helpful for us to know, line of sight to that information.
Yeah, I agree, and I could certainly share that information with you all. I will get with our development services team and as I can to share with everybody.
I would add, and then I'm going to have to leave at another appointment, but as what I was told from the, and this was family that we've known for a long time, that they've had it under option, not the family, but the company that a grandson works for, has had it under option for a while, but then they've got extensions, but the extensions end fairly shortly. So there's some urgency to this. Any other questions for me? Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and all the efforts you put in on workforce housing. Take care.
Thank you. One other quick comment on that subject. We, Housing Action Committee, are not one of the stops along the way to approval of specific projects. The projects don't come specifically through us. But on the concept of older hotel properties being converted in a very positive way to workforce housing affordably, I think that comment has come up before, and I think something that, as a concept, we're very much hoping the town can look at.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Ken.
Other public comments at this point? Okay. Quincy, anything else?
No, that's it for me.
Okay, that's very, very helpful. Sharonica Gavin has updates on the home safety and repair program. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning, everyone. Sharonica Gavin, Principal Planner for Historic Neighborhoods. For the record, so the town of Hilton Head has a home safety repair program that will pay up to $15,000 of eligible repairs. This includes repairs to roofs, windows, doors, and other parts of the home, keeping it safe and keeping the home dry. It also includes demolition of uninhabited or unsafe structures, as well as the removal or trimming of trees in danger of damaging property. Now, in July of 2024, the town relaunched the Home Safety and Repair Program with updated internal processes to improve the experience for applicants, contractors, as well as staff. Since the relaunch, program associates have conducted roughly 65 site visits. We've completed 23 projects and currently have 36 projects under contract. Now, that's since July of 2024, so work has been being done. However, I want to give you all some additional updates and overview of the program's impact since its inception in 2022. So we have received 147 applications. Now, of those, some don't meet income qualifications. Others have chosen to withdraw, which is very minimal, as well as some need additional information. So of those 147, about 113 are completed applications that we have received. Now, of those, we have completed 65 of these projects, and we have 36 that are currently under contract with about 8 awaiting contractor bids. As stated last month, the biggest challenge right now is identifying additional funding for this program, and we will continue to work with our grants administrator to see if there's additional funding that we all can kind of collaborate on, as well as look for community partners in order to get it done. And with that, I'm done.
Questions, comments for Ms. Gavin? I might ask one. When the current allocation of dollars is run out, are there other funding sources on the horizon that
So that's what we're currently attempting to identify at this time. We want to keep this program going because we see the need here on Hilton Head. And we don't want to pretty much get a queue of individuals that we're not serving for long periods of time. Because as we all know, the damage and wear and tear within the homes just become extremely extensive.
So the hope is for it to be a long-term program.
That's the hope. Identified,
Continuing.
absolutely.
I do have a question. Actually, it's a two-part. So what is the full budget that you have and what is your shortfall?
So we were allocated about 1.5 million for home safety repair. At this time in the remaining budget, we only have enough to kind of conduct 2 additional projects.
And how much funding would you be looking for grants?
I think pretty much as much
All of
as we
it?
can possibly find. I will tell you, of the individuals that we currently have in the queue, I would say at least $250,000 to $300,000 right now. But that's not going to get us to a point of sustainability. We need to keep this program going as much as possible. As I stated before, the need is there. And to be honest, you know, if we can provide more than $15,000 per household, that will definitely make a larger impact within these homes. As someone who has been conducting these site visits, I do say that just from experience and what I've seen.
What can we do to try to be helpful in this? Because it certainly seems like it's a very important program. And why is the funding so difficult?
I would say keep a lookout on opportunities for us to find funding for the program. Of course, share that with Quincy. Quincy has been assisting in us identifying additional funding for these programs, as well as going to site visits and trying to connect with the families as much as possible. So if you all come across funding that we can utilize, that would be greatly beneficial.
Other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the report.
Thank you.
Our work group updates, Quincy has covered a lot of that very well, so I won't repeat, but Muddy Creek, we have been kept in the loop on the pre-planning for that and on the events that have happened out there, Muddy Creek and the Bryant Road tract, 7 acres specifically. My thought is that the RFQ for that is critically important to get that moving along as quickly as possible for the actual planning for that tract itself. And it really is, in my view, the next piece of property at scale that the town has available to it after the North Point project. I think we need to be working hard to get other projects on other lands in the pipeline here. Keep the ball moving forward on affordable housing. Displacement, we've had the updates on. We'll be talking about a motion to move that along next. And we have, I think I mentioned in our November meeting, we have met with Heller Woolwine, the new communications director for the town, but do not yet have a speaker program plan put together with a slideshow. That's something that definitely needs to be worked on with some urgency. I feel like we are behind on that initiative. That's my quick updates. Others from other work groups or comments?
I just have a comment, and I sound like a broken record, but we've talked about the land that the town owns on the mainland. And I'm just wondering, Quincy, is there any update on the availability of that land to be used for affordable housing?
So we're expecting on upcoming agendas to have a staff report outlining some of the properties on the island that are currently under inventory that could be utilized for workforce housing, and other parcels throughout the island that maybe we should look at. But we've had those discussions, and we would include that on upcoming agendas for next year.
Barry?
We certainly can, you know, but yeah, we could certainly talk about that. I was hoping maybe in January that we could have a workshop discussing the neighborhood stabilization plan, but certainly in Q1, we need to have that discussion.
And I don't think we need all that update in a nice package, completely finished with a bow on it. If we can, get updates as that moves along, I think that'll be helpful. So if possible, something in January, but it doesn't need to be the finished product. We'd like to be in the middle of that discussion as it goes.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. That shouldn't be an issue.
Okay. Great, thank you. Next item is considering the motion to approve the displacement mitigation support plan. That has been through all the steps at the town staff level and legal review at this point. It is ready for our recommendation, if we so desire to recommend moving forward with that mitigation plan for the town and the community. Is there a motion? You've all seen that in your package. Is there a motion to move that recommendation forward?
So moved.
Andy West and Dennis Crawford on the second. Is there discussion? And then we'll go to public comment. Quincy received a couple comments. They weren't comments that would necessarily change the motion here, correct?
No, so a few of the comments that we received was, for the voluntary questionnaire, for it to be voluntary, for developers to fill it out, it is very lengthy. It may be best to reduce it in size a bit so that, developers will be more likely to fill it out. Of course, that questionnaire is used to get as much information as possible for us to pass on to the community response team to interact with displaced residents. But I think that comment was duly noted, and, you know, that's something that we're taking under consideration.
Great.
Observation on that, Quincy. It would seem to me that a developer would be more than anxious to cooperate with the town in submitting that questionnaire anyway, because they need approvals, they need permits, they need to work along with the town. So mandatory, I thought might be important in the beginning, but after thinking about it, I don't know why they wouldn't complete that anyway. Because you gotta cooperate with the requirements of the town, and that's certainly, if they say no, they start off on the wrong foot.
Yeah, I think from a PR perspective, it's always best, you know, if it was me personally as a developer, I would want to help my residents out as much as possible from a PR perspective. So to your point, I would think developers will be more than willing to fill it out. But again, to that comment that I did receive, it does make sense. It is a very lengthy questionnaire, just to make it a bit easier for developers on their end.
Great. Anything else? Comments, concerns?
I just had a quick comment. You know, when we're looking at, I think it's page 4 of the document, there was the response of why town funding couldn't be used for displacement initiatives. And the response given was that it can't be used for personal benefits. But I'm just struggling to see the distinction between why it couldn't be used there when we can spend $1.5 million helping people repair their homes. There's clearly personal benefit there, and I'm a huge proponent of that program. So I'm not throwing anything at that program. I'm just struggling to understand why it can be done for home repair, but couldn't be done for displacement. So
Yes,
if you
so-
could help me with that.
Sure. So the monies that were utilized for the home safety repair program were ARPA dollars. So COVID monies, they had different restrictions associated with them. Whereas the question that was posed was town dollars utilized for the displacement mitigation support plan. So that's why, the answer we provided was that public funds cannot be utilized for personal benefit. So there are different types of monies.
I guess implied in that is that the additional money, if any, coming forward for the home repair program, with the current position of the town, would not be available for budgeted dollars, but would have to be looking for grants. Is that going forward? Or Are we comparing apples and oranges here?
Well, I think we're comparing apples and oranges a little bit, but I will say the work of the Community Foundation of the Low Country, you know, they're very confident that they're able to raise quite a few dollars to support any type of displacement mitigation plan or event that may occur. So I would say as our funding source, we're really confident that the Community Foundation of the Low Country could raise enough funds to support any displacement event.
Thank you. Other comments, Sarah?
I was the one that made the comment about the length of the voluntary questionnaire. I think a way to maybe get around that is separate into seller versus buyer questions. There is some overlap, and then you might be able to get it to under a page, separated it that way.
Thank you.
Other public comments specifically on this issue, the displacement mitigation plan approval? Seeing none, are we ready to vote? Those in favor of the motion to approve? Those opposed? Feel like we should have a party. A long time coming, a good result. Thanks, Quincy, for you and to all the town staff about all your hard work that's gone into this. So it's been a bumpy road at times and frustrating, but here we are. We're ready to go on that. Of course, the next step is when people are displaced and we put the plan into action, where do they go? And that gets us back to square one of our mission here, to have housing available that people can actually occupy. Before we move to new business, any other unfinished business we need to discuss?
I'll bring the champagne in January. Thank you.
We have Claude Hicks here today to deliver a report on the Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust Program. Claude, welcome. Appreciate you coming.
Good morning, everybody. There we go. Oh, thank you. You know, they always hand me these things as though they think I know how to do it. So, thank you for this opportunity to speak before you today. Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust has done a lot since my arrival here on the 1st of April. Some of you in the room have been partners with us already. We appreciate those partnerships. It worked, thank you. Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust, as many of you may know, is a regional consortium. 6 municipalities, both counties, Beaufort and Jasper, as well as Soloco, came out of a report called the Escura-Robinson Report that talked about how you could structure a regional program that specified what and how you were going to approach affordable housing within those 2 counties. Our mission is very simple. It is to create and preserve workforce and affordable housing in Beaufort and Jasper counties. I hope it never gets bigger than that. It's very nice to have a very simple mission that everybody can understand and everybody can follow along with and agree to. Some things that we want to make sure of and we talk about when we meet with various groups is some concepts that people hear, that they may not necessarily know what they mean. Many of you in this room know what area median income is. We define workforce housing as anything up to 120% of area median income, affordable housing, 60% or less of area median income. We want to differentiate between the two because they are, especially here, 2 very distinctly different things. Most of the time in affordable housing, you will see something referred to as LIHTC, low-income housing tax credits, which is a financing mechanism. But workforce housing many times is a real public-private partnership in order to raise enough money to get these projects done. The 30% affordability threshold. Everyone in the United States that deals with this subject has made an agreement with the government, which is, when you think about it, a really unusual thing, that no family or individual should pay more than 30% of their income for housing. This threshold, when you look at it and you take a look at what happens when you go above that 30% threshold, we see now all over the country. What happens is when you go above 30%, then families, individuals begin to make sacrifices in other areas. Those sacrifices are food, transportation, childcare, the things that are discretionary income for a lot of families, but those discretionary incomes go away the more you are paying for housing on a monthly basis. What do we look like here? If you take a look at this, and I think most of you have gotten the package before today, at 100% of median family income in Beaufort County, that's $106,400, with a monthly affordability of $2,660. In Jasper County, you can see that that is dramatically different and dramatically lower. Jasper County has some of the highest need, not only in this area, but in the region. We went, and I know some of you were in the room at a recent meeting about affordable housing and about costs and about what we do. If you see the line right there that goes across, that represents people who could afford a home and not spend more than 30% of their income, a medium-priced home. If you look at that line, you will see for the last 21 years, Beaufort, Jasper counties have not had one period of time where we met that criteria, where someone could afford a home and not spend more than 30% of their median income at 80% of area median income. That, when this was presented by Dr. Ulrich from the Federal Reserve, stopped everyone in the room, including the 5 mayors who were sitting there. No one thought about the fact that it had gotten this bad and the crisis was this intense. If you look at Savannah, everything that you see in blue are times during the last 20 years when that could be met. Someone could buy a house, not spend more than 30% of their income. So Savannah has done much better than we have done in this area. Even Charleston has had periods of time over the last 20 years. The blue are those periods of time where they met that threshold. Just keep in mind that Beaufort and Jasper County have never met that threshold in 20 years. When we look at pricing, potential home buyers would have to make almost $170,000 a year to affordably purchase a median-priced home.
Can I ask a question real quick, just going back to your last chart? You're amalgamating Beaufort and Jasper. Does Jasper ever meet it by itself?
No.
Okay. Just
No. The reality is, this is a place where people want to come live. It is a place where people want to come retire. They bring those dollars here. It is a place where prices have been driven up unbelievably over the last 10 years, and it has really negated any chance that a median middle-income family can afford to buy a house. Now we have a situation where that middle-income family can't afford to rent a house either, or rent an apartment. When you look at 3 bedrooms in Beaufort are approaching $3,000 a month. When you take a look at that and you think about a family that's making, let's say, $90,000 combined income, $3,000 a month is a huge amount of money to be paying. If you think about buying a house and you look at an average mortgage, interest, taxes, cost of upkeep, first of all, there's nothing to buy, but secondly, if there were, they couldn't afford to buy it. What we're seeing across the country, but magnified even more here, is what's called the press-down effect. So what you have here is you have people, the normal part of the population that would buy houses can't afford them. So they are willing to pay more for a luxury rental than they were 10 years ago. They occupy those apartments. It forces all of the middle income families to go down one level. They're ending up in the C and B apartments. Not so nice, doesn't have the luxuries, doesn't have the amenities. That forces low income down to slumlord housing. Below that, you're going to see a rise in homelessness because people really don't have anywhere to go. There's no option for them. So if we look at Hilton Head, between 2019 and 2024, the median sale price has risen 14.7%. If you look at that in comparison across the United States, the growth across the United States is only 5.1% across the country. You can see here, Hilton Head pricing, obviously, you all know it, you feel it every day, you live here, is really getting to the point where even those that are in the higher income bracket are really looking at what's available for them. You have those homeowners who can afford to buy whatever, they can afford to build whatever, but then you have a lot of homeowners that have the money, that have the ability, but there's just nothing in the marketplace that they are able to buy. The development of workforce and affordable housing must be intentional. Washington is not going to solve this problem. They're not going to do it. And when people ask me, well, yes, they will. They provide billions, trillions of dollars. There is a piece of legislation sitting in the Senate that would triple the number of tax credits coming to every state in the union. If that happened today in South Carolina, every affordable housing project that submitted an application this year would have been awarded. The reality is that that piece of legislation has sat in the Senate for 10 years because it cannot attach itself to any piece of legislation and actually get approved. Why is that? Because there is a faction in Washington, D.C. that believes this is a taxpayer issue. It's not. Private companies buy tax credits, has no impact on individuals. So it has sat there, and it has sat there for 10 years. Am I hopeful that it will get onto a piece of legislation in the next administration? No, I'm not. So it will probably go 14 years sitting in the Senate before the next administration really looks at it. Workforce housing has to be public-private partnerships. It has to be private developers who are willing to look at things differently, who are willing to try and make an effort to reduce their costs. It has to be private partnerships that involve public entities that are willing to give land, that are willing to give some regulatory relief, that are willing to take a look at how they can actually participate in housing and in affordable housing and in workforce housing. This has become here an economic development issue. If you look at what is happening here, you all know it. We're having a workforce crisis. We've been having one here for a long time. Everybody just kind of hoped it might go away. It's not going to, but it's affecting everything. Beaufort Memorial Hospital, one of our grantees in our first round, they cannot find nurses because nurses don't want to come here because they can't afford a place to live. So what are they doing? 30% of Beaufort Memorial's nursing staff is transitional nurses. They come in, they stay 120 days by law. They get a $2,500 tax-free per month bonus. They have a little camping trailer that they park outside of Beaufort. After the 4 months goes by, they get in their trailer and they go to Oklahoma or they go to Alaska. If I'm a young nurse, it's a great way to see the country. It's a wonderful opportunity. But for the hospital, it loses that staff every 120 days. It loses the normal connection to community that you have when someone actually lives in the place that they work. And it causes economic chaos within the structure of the hospital because they have a crisis every 120 days. For those of you who don't believe that, this past summer, Beaufort Memorial Hospital twice reached what they call maximum capacity, where they had patients in the hallways on gurneys. They did not have enough staff to treat the number of patients who were sitting in the hospital. In a recent conversation that I had with the head of the hospital, he told me this will really get fixed when someone walks in here with a heart attack and we can't treat them and they pass away right there. That'll be a big story. The newspaper will run it. Everybody will get up in arms, say, what can we do? And it's because there's no place for nurses to live. There's no place for hospital staff to live. So we, in our first programming, concentrated on 3 areas. One was development of affordable housing. The second was home repair. And the third was first-time home buyers. So as we put our RFQ and RFP out, we got 14 applications. We chose 8 of them. And we chose them based on whether or not they had the capacity to begin work immediately, whether they had something that fit with what we were going to do. By and large, our home repair program was the #1 initiative across the board. Everybody sees the crisis there, and there's not enough funds to apply towards it. So you recognize Deep Well, Habitat. Those 2 were on our list of 8 grantees. They're doing wonderful work in the area. So what have we done to date? We put $500,000 in a loan program in Carrington Manor, which is a LIHTC senior facility over in Beaufort. It's underway, should be finished within the next 6 months in construction. $619,000 in grant funding for home repairs, $364,000 in grant funding for home buyer assistance, $600,000 in grant funding to CCDC. In that program, the county wanted to give the money to CCDC, but they didn't want to do the administrative paperwork to follow the money. So they came to us and said, will you do that for us? To date, $300,000 of that $600,000 has been deployed, and I believe that 13 homes have been purchased that will now be rented at affordable rates. These are our goals that we want to try and achieve with the money that we have put out so far. The monies that have been put in by the regional partners, the state has also added a $3 million check, which we received in the mail, if you can believe that, a $3 million check in the mailbox. But the only way that Senator Davis got that fund, the only way, was because he told the legislature that it was going to a regional approach, and it was going to partners who put up money and made pledges to put up money over the next 10 years. And Hilton Head is one of those partners. So what are we doing next? We got approved to be a qualified sponsor for the state home repair funds. That was a brutal process. And I'm happy that Jennifer volunteered to do the 120-page application. We got approval. We are looking for our first 2 homes that we are going to put up to $75,000 each in accordance with the state program. We're only allowed to do 2 houses first. They want to see if we know what we're doing. After 30 years, I think I do, but Columbia is a different animal, so we'll see. We are partnering with the city of Beaufort. They came to us and said they had set aside $50,000 for home repairs, and that clearly wasn't going to be enough. What would we do? We pledged $100,000 from our state funds, and the city of Beaufort put in $150,000. So very soon you'll see an RFP going out to the residents of the city of Beaufort to participate in that program. It will be income-based. It will be very similar to what the state program looks like, but we hope to deploy that very quickly. The city has asked that the maximum per house grant on that program be $50,000 per house. So $250,000 won't go very far, but it will address those houses that are really in need. We're looking at 6 potential land sites, as you might expect. When you hire an old developer who's been around for 30 years doing this, it might attract other developers who come here and say, why are you here? And can we work with you? So we're looking at 6 potential land sites for workforce and affordable housing to partner with developers, see if we can put together something that will help them and actually get their project funded and built. And we supported an additional LIHTC project that the city of Hardeeville is doing that we hope is going to get a LIHTC fund in the next round. These were our first funding round grantees. Many of the names you recognize, those with an asterisk by them, include Hilton Head in their work purview in the areas that they serve. I want to point out particularly on the Habitat donation, we put enough money into the Habitat Fund to give each of the Hardeeville 10-unit Habitat project their first-time homebuyers down payment. So it was, I think, $9,000 each. So we were very proud that that happened, very proud to get that in there. We're very proud that Deep Well is one of our partners that we were able to work with. We hope that we will be able to expand the number of grantees that we have in 2025. Our board is still working and our committee is still working on how we're going to structure that and who we're going to serve. We need to take a look at, in particular, our home buyers, first-time home buyers program. It's great that we have it. It's great that we can participate. We're finding that including the hospital, our grantees are having a hard time finding homes that they can actually buy and provide first-time home buyers assistance. So here are the things that we've done so far with Hilton Head. So I won't read them all, but we are actively looking to build our partnership here. We know this is a very difficult area to try and figure out how to be effective, but we've met with Quincy, we've met with Tom Boxley, we've thought about how we do this. We have put Tom Hens on our board, and he's been very helpful in the direction that Hilton Head is going and what we can do. So we hope that that continues to grow. We met with your council and some of your administrative staff recently to talk about how we could make this happen, how we could do more, in particular about your home repair program. This is our board, many of the names that you will recognize. It is grown to be, since I've been here in April, a board that kind of sort of knew what they were doing, to a board that has now formed 3 committees, that has now really been active in how we move forward. And it is made up of people who have been in the housing business for a long time, and then newcomers who are just interested in doing something to help and in contributing. So it's been a great board to work with. Who is it that we're looking to really impact? These and many other families and individuals have to have a place to live here in order for them to want to work here, in order for them to really do the things that we need to have done that make a community really thrive and really move and really work together. Without them, you are going to have, as Dr. Ulrich pointed out, the entire state of Maryland is now called a dying state. There are more people leaving than there are coming in. There are more people who are looking at Maryland as a place they do not want to live, as opposed to South Carolina, where everybody wants to live. Part of that issue in Maryland happened because housing got so high and costs got so great and taxes became so cumbersome that people just left. They just left. And the job market is good. They can find a job somewhere else. They don't have to be married to the job they have. So they get that U-Haul and they pack up and they do what all of us did when we were young. We took a chance on someplace else. We took a chance on a new job and we moved out. I lived in Baltimore for 7 years. It is awful to be part of a dying city. It is awful to wonder if your house catches on fire, whether the firemen are going to get there in time to save anything. South Carolina, in almost every metric, is a place where people want to come live. They want to move here. They want to be a part of this community. Thank you for your time. What I have up here is what we have become familiar with saying over and over again. No housing equals no workers, equals no economic development, equals no community. That is true of anywhere that has the circumstances that we have here. I'm here to tell you, working both in the for-profit and the nonprofit sector, working in government, working in the private community, there are answers to get this done. There are answers, there are things that we can do. Are some of them painful? Maybe. Are some of them gonna create a lot of discourse and discussion and argument? Absolutely. But in order for us to create the kind of community that everybody wants to live in, and that is open to everyone who wants to live here, we think this can be done. And we want the trust to be a major part of it as we move forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Claude, for an outstanding presentation.
Thank you.
And you have this in a printed copy here for the public. It's also online at the town website. A lot of great work is going on. Comments and questions first from the panel here and then from the public.
Claude, I have a question. Why are the open seats on the board of directors from Hilton Head, Jasper County? Are they new seats that just haven't been filled yet?
They're not. Jasper County's opening is relatively new. Our representative from Jasper County decided that she was going to open up her own business, and she wanted to concentrate on that. Hilton Head has not assigned a member in over a year. We've been told that it's in process and that there'll be a representative in 2025.
And one follow-up question. With regard to the crisis in nursing care, and you may not be the appropriate person to answer this, but I just want to throw it out there. It seems to me that with regard to at least the hospital now that is Novant, that is involved in Hilton Head, is a nonprofit. It seems with nonprofits who would be an ability to work with private enterprise and also the municipality to come up with some ideas on how to address this. There's an ability for wealthy people, which we have many in this area, to contribute and get credit for that, name wings after them or whatever. But there just seems to be an ability that we can, in addition to building hospitals, since they need so badly workers, that could be translated to housing. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. It just seems something that should be explored because of the ability to get money from wealthy people to contribute to nonprofit hospitals.
So with respect to Beaufort Memorial, we're working with them to develop two programs. One is a rental program that would have a preference for hospital staff. We're wanting to make sure with the fair housing lawyers that we structure this the right way. There is a difference between exclusively for hospital staff and a preference for hospital staff. What we're also looking at is we're working with a private modular manufacturer. If we could get a piece of land, we're talking to the county about a piece of land that is available. We could put up to 25 modular units on it at a price point that a nurse would be able to afford. This is what's wrong with government. You would think that if I said, we're gonna build 25 homes exclusively for hospital staff, that government would say, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to help? Instead, they said, well, we don't like the way this modular unit looks. We want it to look more like a house. So we want different windows. and we want a deck, and we want a door, and we want it to look like, you know, like a house. I said, it is a house. Modular homes are not inexpensive anymore, if you've ever taken a look at the marketplace. So it's getting over that automatic way to think. And there is such a thing, especially in government, as the automatic no. I need to find some place for this not to happen. You are absolutely correct. There are enough dollars to get this done. There are enough people who want to do something. There are enough people who are thinking, you know, what does happen if I walk in and I'm having a heart attack? Am I gonna get the best of care? Am I gonna get people who care about this community and care about me and care about what happens? You're absolutely right. There are enough resources. It is the time that it takes. So a normal affordable housing developer takes between 4 and 5 years from the time they see a piece of land to the time that they actually open the doors and somebody actually walks in. In the private market, it's somewhat faster because they have dollars available to them they're not competing for. But they are, I got a call the other day from a developer who said, I want to see if you can help me with something. I was like, sure. Does it have to do with housing? Yes, it does. The county is making me build a $2 million road to nowhere in my apartment complex, and it's causing my rental prices on that complex to go from $2,700 for a 2-bedroom to $3,200 for a 2-bedroom. Can you help me? I was like, no, I can't help you stop a road to nowhere. I can help you sit down with the government and talk about why are you doing this? What is it that requires this? How can we change, how can we look differently at regulation? But it takes a long time. Every group that I have met with, and you guys are the, I think 76th or 77th since the 1st of April, have said, how do we get housing now? We need it now. We have a crisis now. And we've talked about various things, and Quincy and I have talked about, you know, do we buy old buildings and renovate them, turn them into housing? There are efficiency apartments, and it's not affordable. If you guys take a look at one that was built in Beaufort named Vivo, that was built all efficiencies, used to be a motel, and they expected kind of a young professional group to be their primary residence. It has turned out to be single women over 70 years old. So, but they did that very quickly because they had a building that was there. We know for sure that another hotel in town is being looked at. We know that there are several hotels and several buildings. I can tell you, as somebody who has built over 250 projects, converting something that was built for some other reason is really hard to convert into housing and very expensive, but it can be done. And you have a place here where you have dollars, you have access to money. It's marshaling those together. It's getting over the normal objections and actually putting people in housing. That was a long-winded way of answering your question.
I think your brochure was eye-opening.
Excellent information. I do have a question.
Stuart was
Oh,
next.
I'm sorry, sorry.
So, obviously, with development that's going on just outside of Savannah, it's going to create 10,000 plus jobs with no housing. With Jasper, 35-minute drive from there, et cetera, and also Hampton, which you're not expanding into, but maybe you should. The idea being that, is there any coordination with Georgia? Because Georgia has dollars. That's kind of the way I'm asking. Is there some coordination? Because they've got they have a bigger problem, obviously.
I think maybe on a 10,000-foot level, there's some thought about how do we do this and where is everybody going to live and what are they going to live in? It's kind of funny when we I sat in a meeting with the mayor of Hardyville, who was talking about the pros and cons of Buc-ee's coming to that area. And while he, on one hand, wants Buc-ee's, the name and everything that kind of goes around it, on the other hand, he really wants housing. He really wants to figure out how to do this. And it's so hard that I don't know what the answer is going to be. You've got a flood of developers who are now looking at Georgia as the next golden place to go. And here, though, when they look at Beaufort and Jasper County and they ask the question, is it easy for me to build there and develop there? It's clearly, it's worth it, because when I look at the median income and when I look at rental prices for a developer, that's very enticing. And the fact that South Carolina is the number 4 place in the United States where people are coming, Myrtle Beach is the number 1 place on a per capita basis. I'm not quite sure why, but it is. We have to have discussions about why is it that people are going to Hardyville to live? Why is it that people have moved out to Jasper County? Why is it that Hampton has now come to us and said, we think we'd like to be part of the consortium, the Regional Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust? It's because people are looking for a cheap place to live. They're willing to do the drive if instead of $2,500 a month, they're paying $1,200 a month. They'll do it. That gas will be nothing. It's an easy deal.
I mean, there's other issues that I'm sure you're aware of, but example, the Hyundai plant is going to use as much water a day as Hilton Head uses. And that's coming out, and Georgia has guaranteed them water. Where that water is coming from, no one knows.
No.
You've got the same, Beaufort Jasper water has significant capacity to build. Their costs have gone up 30% in the last year.
And they will go up another 30% in January.
And if we build a port, again, more workers, no thing, that's gonna require additional infrastructure that unfortunately, although housing, as you said, is a 3, 4, or 5-year process, infrastructure is a 10 or 20-year process. And, again, above our pay grade here, but it's stuff that has to be considered as we look out long-term about how these things get funded. The nice thing about some of the infrastructure, federal dollars flow to infrastructure a lot, but it still requires local.
Well, as we were looking at, I asked Jennifer, how many people live in Savannah and drive here every day to go to work? A lot more than you think. A lot more than you think, because the costs there are significantly cheaper than they are here. And you can argue about what kind of place Savannah is to live versus what kind of place this is to live. But I'll put it this way, if we don't have these discussions now, 10 years from now, this will be a place where people used to want to come to live. They will go someplace else. Charleston has done a very good job of keeping up with everything, but they've had the money to do it. But they've had the political will to do it as well.
Andy?
Yeah, so Claude, a great presentation, so
Sure.
thank you so much. My question is, the opening on the board, that's the Hilton Head opening, was that Tony Alfieri's?
It was.
And I don't know how it works, so forgive me, but how does another person, how is someone selected? What is the process?
So there are currently board members who are at large that joined the board because they wanted to. And then we have representatives from each of the regions and the counties and Soloco. It's up to that region to nominate and to name that representative to the board. We don't have a part of that. They just come and say, I'm the representative.
That's the opening?
That-
Tom Hens is in the,
So it's the
at large?
town.
Tom Hens is an at-large member. He does not represent Hilton Head.
But the town makes the recommendation.
They do.
This does not give me a warm and fuzzy feeling about how much a priority this is to the, forgive me, all the town people, but to the town. This seems like an enormously long period of time on a very, very important topic to have an opening. But maybe I'm being unfair, so.
I would agree that Hilton Head needs to have someone sitting at the table, which is why we asked Tom to join the board, because we knew that we could get the flavor of Hilton Head, but also the political and the regulatory and the kind of feel for how do we work with Hilton Head. And each of these municipalities have been very different to work with. I hope that what we've been told is accurate, which is they're going to address it. First, they asked us to wait until after the election. Now, I guess everyone will take their new seats in January, and my hope is that we'll get someone sitting on the board then. Sure.
Educating me.
Sure.
Well, regarding, I guess this is a supply and demand question. On Hilton Head, have the requests for help matched with your dollars available, or have there been many requests for help? From Hilton Head specifically, I'm asking about.
Yes, there have been a couple. So in addition to the grantees who got funding from us and the work that they do in Hilton Head, Quincy and I have met about the North Point project and about how we could help there. Tom Boxley has met with me to talk about once he gets his programs kind of put together and his direction put together, talking to us about how we can help there. And I know we've had a discussion and continuing discussions about how we can help on the home repair side. So we're having those discussions, trying to figure out how do we make an impact, how do we help?
Overall, do you see the sources on the horizon for funding in the two counties as a whole to cover the demand that you're gonna have for help?
No. So we have two approaches that we have to take. One is how do we get funding out into the municipalities, into the counties in an impactful way? But the other thing is, how do we make the trust sustainable over the long run? And how do we become partners? Do we become developers, which is not what I think anybody wants us to do. Certainly not what I want to do. After 15,000 units, I'm tired. But I plan to go to Senator Davis and ask to triple the amount that the state gave us. We have gone to the state and said, your home repair fund is predicated on taxes that are paid on real estate transactions. And you have this pot that you don't use. To give you an example, year before last, out of $20 million, one roof and one deck got fixed. That was it. And then the legislature came over and said, why the heck are you not deploying these funds? And so they did a little bit more this past year. What we have said is, if Beaufort and Jasper County taxes represent X percent of that pot, let's say it's 20%, give us the 20% or $20 million, and we'll disperse those funds in a matter of about 60 days. They didn't particularly like that approach, but we're trying to make the argument. There is a program that South Carolina is competing for. We're not sure if they're going to get it or not, that is specifically designed towards modular and mobile homes. Again, we have said to the state, give the counties the money, and we'll figure out how to make this happen. Probably the best example of how we can work together is what we're doing with Beaufort on their city home repair fund. They came to us and said, we'll put up money. Will you put up money? Will you manage the program for us? Because we don't have time. And let's see what we can do. Our response was, we can certainly do that, but what we'd like you to think about long-term is, to make this a perpetual fund. Put it as a part of your budget every single year. Hilton Head has the advantage of having that already in your budget. I mean, it's a whopping amount of money. Still doesn't meet all of the requirements, but way ahead of what anybody else is doing. But today, there's a 7 million home need across the United States that grows on an average of about 3% a month. This counts everybody that needs a home. It's been my experience that this is not a problem that will ever go away. It's not an issue that will ever kind of get solved. We will always look at it in a different way, bring different approaches to it to try and get things done. We hope that you all participate in that effort. Obviously you are by volunteering your time and your efforts. We hope the trust is around for a long time and can do some great work.
Other questions for Claude or comments before we ask for public comment? Sandy?
Just to comment that I am so thankful and grateful for you slugging through that monster application so you can be the qualified sponsor. I think that's a huge step towards unlocking some of those dollars that are sitting in Columbia and not helping anyone anywhere in the state. So I just want to say hats off and kudos to you guys for taking that initiative and making that happen.
Well, that really can be used, and I've said this to other groups. I thought that would be pretty easy for me to call and say, we'll be a sponsor, we have need. And what I was told was, well, you have to come to a class. I said, can I do that virtually? No, you have to come to Columbia. And there's only 20 slots, so you're number 20. Okay, drove to Columbia, got to Columbia, and the very first thing that the two people there said was, this is the director's last day. We don't have a new director, so without a new director, the program really can't go forward. So with that, let's talk about how you apply for money to be a sponsor. So as they began to talk, they said, you need to have some liquidity. One guy stood up and said, I came here thinking you were going to give me money. You're telling me I have to have money before you can give me money? They said, yes. He just packed up his stuff and walked out of the room. Then they said, you need experience. How many people here have experience? I was the sole person to raise his hand, and a lady got up and said, I thought you were supposed to help us gain that experience. We're willing here. And there were a number of churches there that said, this is a good thing. Well, another couple of people got up and walked out of the room. They don't have any experience. So then we were told, put in your application. It's 120 pages, and we'll respond to you in 10 days. And then, what was it, 4 months later, I think? 3 or 4 months later, we got a letter that said, these are the 3 things missing in your application. So Jennifer did the additional work. One of them they already had, sent it back in, and then we waited another, I think, 60 days before we finally got a letter and said, congratulations, you're only limited to 2 houses, and you have to work with our local inspectors to get your work done. So we and the Black Chamber are the only 2 entities that are qualified sponsors in Beaufort and Jasper County. It is a hard process. You would think it'd be easier, but it's harder. There's a whole list of rules. But it's an example of how a state allocates money and it says this is going to be for a good thing. This is going to be great. And then they regulate it so highly that people just walk away and just say, I'm not enough brain damage for me to do that. I don't get enough benefit out of it. So you have a lot of churches that then do something on their own. They figure out how to do it. It takes them 20 years, and they finally do it. But it's just an example. It's not just South Carolina. You want to work in a regulated state, try work in Pennsylvania or Delaware. I had a partner who told me it was easier to build a skyscraper in Manhattan than it had been for him to build 60 units in the state of Delaware. So South Carolina really is kind of okay, but it's still a regulatory process. But thank you, Sandy. And we're extremely proud that you all are taking the funding that we gave you and really applying it. I think you've spent it all, haven't you? Just about?
First installment.
Yeah.
Claude and Jennifer, thank you so much
Thank you.
for being here, and thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you for the invitation.
Before we open it up to public comment on non-agenda items, are there other issues to be spoken of here? Public comment. Any folks that need to make a public comment that were not up earlier? Hearing none. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Stewart, second? Luana? Those in favor of adjournment? Those opposed?
No one's opposed.
We are adjourned. Thank you.